My name is Noel Latif. I'm president of the Foreign Policy Association, and I am delighted to welcome you to this Statesman's dinner. My understanding is that this is the year of Italian culture, with Italy's rich cultural heritage showcased across the United States. We are doing our part at the Foreign Policy Association to put our spotlight on Italy, and we are delighted to have with us this evening Dr. Fabrizio Saccomanni, Italy's Minister of Economy and Finance. Many economic historians have grappled with one of the great mysteries of modern economic history, Italy's erratic economic growth. As former Prime Minister Giuliano Amato reminded us recently, during the Renaissance, parts of the Italian peninsula were among Europe's richest regions. After the Second World War, Italy became Western Europe's fastest growing economy. Over the past decade, Italy has suffered a setback. We are going to leave you in suspense until after dinner to hear Dr. Saccomanni's prescriptions for strengthening Italy's economy. We will turn to our board member, Tom Michaud, to formally introduce Dr. Saccomanni and to present him with the Foreign Policy Association Medal. Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy your meal. We will resume after dinner has been served. Thank you.
Good evening. If I could have your attention, please. Good evening. My name is Tom Michaud, and I'm a board member of the FPA, and I'd like to again welcome you all for joining us this evening. And it is my pleasure and honor to be able to introduce our guest this evening. I'm going to very briefly mention some things about him. I think you'd like to hear more from him than from me, but just let me say that I think we have one of the most notable international financial diplomats with us this evening to speak. Dr. Fabrizio Saccomanni was asked in April to become the Minister of Economy and Finance in Italy, but he's had a distinguished career that goes back to 1967, serving with the Bank of Italy. He spent 5 years in Washington working for the International Monetary Fund. He's worked for the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the Bank for International Settlements, and the European Central Bank. He earned his postgraduate degree in economics from Bocconi University in Milan. He studied at Princeton, but I'm sure at the height of his resume is from 2010 when he joined an FPA forum to speak about restoring financial stability, and we're delighted to have had him once before and couldn't wait to have him back. Tonight he's going to speak about Italy, Europe, and the path to growth. And I would now like to ask him to join me here at the podium so I can present to him the FPA medal. Thank you.
Very impressive medal. Well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very honored to receive this medal from the Foreign Policy Association. Will excuse me if I don't wear it because it looks so heavy that I might collapse. But indeed, this is a pleasure. Actually, I owe you an apology because I was scheduled to appear before the association in last October in connection with the IMF annual meetings, but then I had to sort of shorten my trip to Washington and couldn't come to New York. So I'm glad that I have a chance to make up for that unwanted sort of absence from this association. I think Mr. Michaud mentioned that I'm supposed to speak about a rather large subject, you know, for an evening, an after-dinner speech. Italy, Europe, and the path to growth. It will take a while. You know, these are short remarks about the universe. You know, so I think. But perhaps I will try to touch upon these three subjects, but in reverse order. So I will try to say something about the path to growth first, then Europe, and then Italy. Also, because this is the Foreign Policy Association, and I have always had a keen interest in foreign policy and diplomacy, although I was never a professional diplomat, but a central banker and an international monetary official. But I think I will try to also to address the issues looking at the role that the foreign policy in the United States and Europe can play in this rather complex international environment that we are confronted with. Now, first, as I said, the path to growth. Analysts, and particularly economists in the OECD, in a recent report have indicated that there are 4 drivers of growth, or lack of growth, because the world economy is not really growing as much as it should. And the 4 drivers are international trade, political uncertainty, the health of the financial system, and the long-term investment channel. Now, the present situation in which we have slow growth, it is due to the fact that there is a revival of protectionism, and world trade is growing much less than it used to do. Political uncertainty is very seriously growing in many of the Western democracies. Certainly it has been a problem in Europe, but also in the United States, and all part of the world, there is perhaps a polarization between left and right, and the center seems to be losing attraction. And a friend of mine who I talked to earlier this afternoon, he said, when the pie goes smaller, tensions become more acute, and that's the problem. So trade restrictions, trade protectionism, political uncertainty. The world financial system is still not in very good health. We went through a severe crisis. The cleaning up process is going forward, but is not fully completed. There are still doubts about the sort of the solidity and the strength of important segments of the banking system. I mean, on this side of the Atlantic, there are reservations about the European banking system. In other parts of the world, there are doubts about the situation in emerging economies and so forth. So, and then long-term investment is also not growing at the pace it should. Actually, there is a strong preference for short-term investments. So there is a lot of liquidity, a lot of savings and capital floating around the world, but somehow is not being invested in long-term projects like in the infrastructural sector. And I see in many parts of the world that there is a need to improve the network of infrastructures, certainly in Europe, but I think also in the United States, and for sure in the emerging economies. So this is the path to growth is now confronted with many obstacles, and so the agenda is clear. We need to have a revamping of trade liberalization. We have to make an effort to reduce political uncertainty, because political uncertainty reduces the confidence of consumers, investors, households, companies, and so forth. We have to clean up the financial system. I think there is still a lot of doubts in the world whether the financial system, as it has been developing in the last decades, it really serves the final needs of the world economy to provide capital for investment, for growth of jobs and sort of opportunities to grow. And then there is, as I said, the need to revive long-term investments. We don't have enough attention to the channels for promoting and distributing the liquidity to long-term infrastructural projects. So who's going to work on this kind of agenda? The international community has been looking at these issues, for quite some time, and since I've become minister only 7 months ago, I have attended a number of high-level meetings of the G20, of the G7 in Europe, and I think, to me, I have the impression that there is one element that can make this agenda more realistically achievable, and that is the transatlantic partnership. I think Europe and the United States, I think, have a very serious responsibility to keep this agenda in motion. There is a transatlantic initiative for trade and investment that has been revived quite surprisingly, because until a few years ago, the United States were mostly looking at the Far East as an area in which they would develop their sort of interest and attention. But now, perhaps as a result of the crisis, politicians in Europe and in the United States have found that this project of a transatlantic partnership for trade and investment is indeed a cornerstone of the foreign policies of the two blocs. And in Europe, we would like to extend this initiative also to the financial system, as I said, to clean up the financial system. And we think that in this initiative there would be room for finding the conditions for a revival of long-term investments. I think we have, both in the United States and Europe, the institutions that could promote long-term investment for infrastructures, and I think this would be a great opportunity. Obviously, what I left aside is political uncertainty. Then, of course, but political uncertainty, in a way, doesn't come from nowhere. Political uncertainty is a result of the fact that there's been tensions, but crisis. There is high unemployment, particularly among young people. There is uncertainty in the economic field, and that is creating discontent among the voters, who tend to take perhaps a more extreme position. So my feeling is that if we restore growth and in a peaceful way, and we strengthen the transatlantic alliance, I think that will be quite an important achievement. And I, of course, will devote all my efforts to make this objective achievable to the extent that I can. Now, Europe. I think Europe has had a very severe crisis, has been dealing with it in a way that was, in a way, unprecedented. We didn't have, when the crisis started, we didn't have the instruments to deal with the global crisis of of the nature that we had to confront with. But we have created those instruments, and I think we have used instruments like the European Central Bank in an innovative way in order to restore confidence in our system and in our currency, because there were at a certain moment doubts as to the very survival of the euro as the currency of the European Union. So now we have overcome that, but we have to do more to revive growth. And I think the problem of youth unemployment in Europe is a very serious one. Certainly, it is a serious one in Italy. And again, I think we have the instruments, the institutions to revive growth, to promote longer-term investment in our infrastructures. That is not an issue only for the countries in the south of Europe or in the periphery, as they tend to say, although I consider that also Finland and Sweden are in the periphery. Depends on what is your point of view, and so I tend to disagree with this kind of groupings, but that's a side issue. So I think there is a need for a strong investment in Europe. We have a single market for goods and services. People move freely. We don't have passports to go from Italy to France or Germany or Finland or other countries. But still, we don't have a network for key elements of the market. For example, we don't have a common electricity grid. We don't have a sort of a network of pipelines to distribute oil and gas in a truly competitive European market. So there is a lot to do, not only in the periphery, but also in the center of the European Union. And to the extent that we do that, I think we will certainly improve the global outlook. We are also very much involved in creating a banking union, which will be our contribution to the cleaning up of the financial system after the crisis. It is a complex project, but I see it as a natural complement of the monetary union. In fact, to have a monetary union without a banking union, and perhaps in the future even a fiscal and a political union, is in a way a sort of a project that will never be fully efficient. So I think these are necessary steps that the sooner they are sort of taken, the better. I think monetary union has been, despite the crisis, which was not originated within Europe but came from the outside, has been on the whole a success, and I hope that the banking union will also be a success, or at least will contribute to dispel doubts about the solidity and the soundness of the European banking system. I think in Europe there are banks that have problems. Some of them have been identified, others may be still not fully discovered, but I don't think that there is any systemic risk of creating a contagion that might affect the whole of Europe or even worse, the rest of the world. So, and now back to Italy. I think Italy has had a difficult period in economic terms. We had a very long recession as a result of the global crisis. We have had also a political period of acute uncertainty in the last few months, since the end of 2012, when the government headed by Professor Mario Monti resigned, and then we had an election, and then long negotiations to create a new government, the one which I am a member, and that only took office in May. So we have had a rather long 6 months period of very acute uncertainty, which has had a negative impact on the sentiment of all economic agents, consumers, households, enterprises, and so forth. So now, since we have taken office, I think we have taken a lot of measures to revive the economy. We have also managed to do that without changing the sort of the composition of our macroeconomic policies that was necessary to stay within the European rules, which I constantly repeat are rules that we respect not because they are imposed by the outside, but because this is a necessity for a country that has a high level of indebtedness, and so we actually, if these rules were not agreed within Europe, we would have to invent them at the national level, and that I think it would make it a lot more difficult to implement them in isolation than it is with the control and support of European institutions. So I think we have also reopened the chapter of structural reforms, which is the third objective that we have undertaken, and we are now progressing in a number of areas, both in the economic field and in the governance of the country. I think we have now the chance to carry on a reform of the electoral system, sort of introducing legislation that would promote the greater stability and would avoid the risk of having again an inconclusive elections like we have had until now. And also, I think changes in the structure of the governance of the country, simplifying the system, reducing duplication in the layers of government, and again trying to reform the public administration and bringing government expenditure under control. So this is a very challenging program. In Italy, we continue to have some moments of political turbulence, but I think the system has in the end moved in a sort of a much more sustainable direction. We have now a more cohesive parliamentary majority that should allow us to look into the implementation of our program, not only in the short run, but certainly going beyond the next year, when we will have also the responsibility of chairing the presidency having the presidency of the European Union for the second half of 2014. So, that should be sufficient to introduce the measures that we need to revive economic growth, to carry on economic and institutional reforms, and again being able then to play a role in Europe to foster the reforms that are also needed at the European level. So, as you see, it's a rather comprehensive program, but as I indicated by sort of describing the challenges coming from the global economy to Europe and then to Italy, we certainly cannot hope to be able to face these challenges unless we can count on stricter policy coordination and cooperation among our main partners, and of course, as I said from the very beginning, you know, the transatlantic partnership is a crucial pillar of this effort, and that's the message I'm happy to deliver here to you at this very nice and warm meeting of the Foreign Policy Association. Thank you very much.
We'll start with Mr. Kashmiri on the far end.
So, Mr. Saccomanni, first of all, thank you for being here. It was a great honor. I actually have two questions to you. You spoke in London some days ago about the need for American institutions, European Union institutions, beginning to work with doing away with the unanimity, but trying to work more with the majority group.
Mm-hmm.
And my question to you is that almost seems to be leading to a fiscal political union, a deeper fiscal political union. And do you think the climate in Italy, people in Italy are ready for that? So that's my first question. The second one has to do with Britain. As you know, Britain is on the path to having a referendum whether to remain in the EU. But the British Prime Minister is now in China, claiming to be the leader of the European Union and pushing for a Chinese-European Union trade pact. So how do you, as an Italian and as a senior financial person, view that? So those are the two questions I have.
Well, very interesting questions, and I'm glad that you were in London listening to me, or at least you had access to my speech. No, I think the first question, my point that I developed in London is that eventually we cannot make progress towards greater integration unless on certain crucial issues we are allowed to decide by majority vote. You know, we have a situation in which every country, even the smallest ones, have in fact a veto power, and I think that has a sort of very clear implication for the efficiency of the decision-making process, and also for the quality of the decision, because you end up reaching sometimes compromises that are good, look good on paper, but then when they're going to the implementation phase, you know, show all the weaknesses, and you know, all unions eventually can really become so inefficient if there is not a decision-making process that leads to actual decision being taken in a timely and efficient way. So I think that is certainly a step that I would consider essential if we want to move towards greater political union. Now, is Italy ready to join that process? My answer, looking at the history of Italy in the European Union, would be yes. But as I said, we live in a moment in which there is great uncertainty, and opinion polls show that the understanding or the appeal of the traditional European values is weakening in all countries, including in Italy. So I'm not saying that the time for very determined progress towards European integration is now, but certainly we should at least avoid to make steps backwards, you know, because I think that if we overcome the economic crisis, if we manage to do the things I mentioned before, then the climate in Europe will change, will turn positive again, and at that time, we should be ready to move forward, and in the meantime, we should try not to compromise what we have already achieved. The question of the United Kingdom is a very interesting one. I think I consider that is also a factor of political uncertainty. The United Kingdom wants to remain in Europe, but wants also to weaken the links between the United Kingdom and the rest of Europe. Whether this can be actually achieved is a big question. I'm not so sure. And I certainly hope that the UK remains in Europe, but I don't think that Europe should be ready to make a concession that would be detrimental for the rest of Europe. I think Britain, for contacts that I've had recently with the UK government, is now more prepared than in the past to accept the fact that the core European countries could make progress in integration, and the United Kingdom will not veto that. So in the past, I think there was the tendency for the United Kingdom to say, but if you do certain things, that will make it impossible for us to participate. And so that kind of attitude was delaying the process of integration without actually satisfying the desire of Britain to retain a certain freedom at the national level. So I think some clarification of this issue is in process, and I think although that was not the initial desire of the founders of Europe, but if we have to move to a sort of a two-speed Europe in which the core goes faster towards the process of integration, and other countries remain connected with the core, but in a sort of a type of looser arrangement, I think that would be perfectly acceptable, at least in my view.
Thank you very much. Let's take one more question from Professor Dante Rossini of Harvard Business School.
Yes, Mr. Thank you very much. Thank you for your words of encouragement, I think, about Europe. I also have a question about Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So Europe has made some phenomenal progress in the years of the crisis, and we've seen policies that would have been unthinkable only a few years ago. Nevertheless, one can still paint a relatively bleak picture if one tried, right? We still have a high level of financial fragmentation. The debt levels of some countries, including Italy, are still high and growing. Some of the macroeconomic imbalances are still out there. And more importantly, some of the main elements of this integration, including the banking union that you're discussing, are still all to come, given that the supervisory mechanism may take place, but then the resolution mechanism and the deposit guarantee mechanism, the Germans are not so keen on. I guess we're far beyond the point where the euro was about to explode, as in 2012, although obviously Mario Draghi's speech in London was a main element of that, and the OMT is still all but conditional politically and still to be tried. What is the worst case for Europe in your mind? What's the likelihood of that happening, and what could trigger it?
Well, to me, the worst case scenario is still the situation in which eventually there was a decision to break up the monetary union, or a situation in which there was such a crisis that would make this unsustainable. My feeling is that either way, the breakup of the euro would create a situation of extreme tension among the European countries. There would be lots of recrimination, finger pointing. There would be inevitably a rise of nationalism and protectionism, which I think, unfortunately, an old man like me recalls that in the past, that has created indeed a situation that was really unmanageable from a social, economic and political point of view. So in my view, you know, even if the arrangements for the monetary and economic union are imperfect, they're still better than, or they're still more conducive to progress and to solving the problems that Europe is confronted with in a global economy. You know, I mean, we're not confronted with sort of local problems. We are confronted with global problems, and no country in Europe, even the big ones, can really address these problems alone. So my feeling is that although imperfect, you know, the European Union is a challenge that is worth pursuing, you know, and it is probably one of the most advanced attempts to achieve a degree of peaceful cooperation among sovereign nations. You know, anything like that has never been attempted anywhere in the world, you know, so people should be patient. You know, it is an experiment of great ambition, and obviously it takes time, you know, to reach positive results. But I'm fully aware of all the shortcomings that you mentioned, but as I said, you know, we have now a framework, even a legal framework, based on the rule of law, directives, rulings by the Court of Justice, decisions by a popularly elected parliament. This is sort of a wealth of institutional underpinnings that are there, I think, to protect the disintegration of Europe, and I think we should use them instead to promote further progress.
Minister Saccomanni, thank you very much for joining us this evening.